hey folks, welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. I've got a different kind of video for you today, a tag. So you want to get to know me? I don't know if you do or not, but I got tags. So let's go through these questions. All right, so Jason Avers tagged me in the Get to Know Me tag, and I often try not to, bore you with like questions about who I am, or make you feel like I'm somebody important. I'm not. I'm just some guy on YouTube. But he tagged me, and I'm a sucker for tags like this just because we all are. And I really do think it's fun to get to know the people that we watch on YouTube. And it was real nice to get to know Jason. Jason has a youngish kind of channel. He's got a lot of good content there. Go check out Jason Avers, and I'll link him up there on the video. Yeah, Jason tagged me, and this is the Get to Know Me tag, and it's 14 questions, and I'm going to try to do it quickly. So the first one is, what is your name and who named you? My name is Scott Head. With a name like Head, you've heard it all. It's a very humbling name because you get made fun of a lot, especially if you're named like my father and my grandfather and my great-grandfather. Man, we had some awful names combined with the last name Head. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but I'm named Scott Head, and I was named after the astronaut Scott Carpenter because when I was born, my father and mother were, they were following the Apollo program, and yeah, I was named after an astronaut. How many siblings do I have? I've got one sibling. I have one sibling. My sister is a Pilates instructor and owns a Pilates studio in Seabrook, Texas. So if you're ever looking for a Pilates instructor and you live in my area, well, she's got you set up. So yeah, I got one sibling. Both of us happen to be adopted. Our parents adopted us through a traditional adoption agency back then, and my sister's actually found her biological mother and has a whole nother biological family out there. My mother has passed away. My father's still alive, and we're adopted, and it's an interesting situation to be adopted and be okay with that. I'm okay with that. I am very grateful for my parents. So, question number 3, was I close with my cousins growing up? Not really. We didn't have a lot of cousins. My mom's side of the family immigrated from Scotland, so most of my cousins were in Scotland, and I didn't know them very much, but we did have like a second cousin family that moved over with them, and yeah, we were kind of close with them. We'd spend holidays together and things like that. On my dad's side of the family, I'd go duck hunting with my cousins out in Rosenberg, Texas, and every now and then I'd meet them out there, but no, we weren't really close. All right, let's get on to another question. Did I have a special bond with my grandparents? Yes, I did. My grandmother on my mother's side lived out in the country, and I would go duck hunting on our family property out there. But she wasn't real affectionate to me. I mean, she was affectionate, but she was my grandfather on my father's side died on an oil rig in Louisiana when my dad was 10 years old, and he was like the foreman of the Shell, or was it Shell? I think it's Shell or Gulf drilling out there, and he got killed. And so my grandmother on my dad's side had to learn to live alone and be a strong woman. She ran a farm, and my dad grew up there with her. So she was not a real affectionate woman, but she was a jolly woman, and she taught me how to skin rabbits and how to live, independently. My grandmother on my mother's side practically raised me while my mother was at work. I mean, she didn't raise me. She was always at my house, and when my mother would work, my grandmother was at home. I'd come home from school, and she would run me through my flashcards and things like that. She went to church with us every week. I saw my grandmother every week multiple times on my mother's side. And she also taught me how to understand a thick Scottish accent. She was a Scottish woman. And yeah, everybody loved my grandmother on my mother's side, and she was a wonderful woman. So yeah, I had a real deep relationship with her. She used to take me to the library, and she inspired me to enjoy reading. She gave me my first copy of the book Pilgrim's Progress, which is one of my favorite books. And yeah, my grandmother, yeah, we called her Nanny. Everybody loved Nanny. All right, did I enjoy high school? That's question number 5. I enjoyed some aspects of high school. I think I enjoyed learning. I did not enjoy the state school system nor how it was set up, and hence that's why I home educate today. I was usually frustrated. I wanted to learn. I wanted to know stuff, and I was usually frustrated by the lack of competence of most of my teachers. They actually sent a coach, one of my football coaches, to teach my history class. And I'm like, what? Coaches don't know anything, nor do they care anything about history. And that was really frustrating for me. I had a few good teachers that I respected. It was usually the ones who were very stern and took education seriously. But for the most part, no, I didn't like high school. I did enjoy the social aspect of it, as most of us who are, social kind of do. But for the most part, no, I don't miss it. I'd never go back and do it again. Man, what a waste of time. You could do high school in about a year if you really set your mind to it. All right, question number 6. What are my hobbies? My wife used to say that hobbies are my hobbies. Obviously, look around. Gardening is a hobby. It's more than a hobby. It's actually, I'm trying to make an impact on my family's food bottom line. But hobbies that I've been involved with, I've been involved in, I cook. I love to cook and try recipes. I've been involved in scale modeling. I've been seriously involved in scale modeling. Check out my scale modeling channel, which is a YouTube channel that documents some of the things I've done. I've been involved in, I play guitar. I try to play guitar. I was in a band in high school, but then I lost the skills, and then I'm trying to gain it back. I play most of the music on my channel now. So I've collected Roman and ancient coins and actually restored them. I got into that because as a graphic designer by profession, I worked at museums and I was an exhibit designer and learned a little bit about conservation of antiquities. Not much, but then I got into it later. I have been into firearms collecting, restoring, and building from scratch firearms. There was a time when I owned almost every firearm the Soviet Army ever fielded. But those days are kind of gone now. But firearms, I was into that for a long time. So yeah, hobbies were my hobby. I did some metal detecting, some stamp collecting, but these things have mostly gone by the wayside as I've gotten older and realized that there are more important things to focus my time on. So right now, all I really do is garden, and when the garden is slow or when the seasons are transitioning, I'll build some scale models and study history and things like that. What do I do to relieve stress when stressed? Well, I don't often get stressed. I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and I find peace in Jesus Christ and in the Bible. I'm actually a preacher these days. I'm a pastor. I pastor a church in Missouri City, Texas. But I don't really get stressed, but there was one time that exposed some weakness in me. We had a tropical storm come through. I think it was called Harvey. Wow, I can't even remember. It was one of the most massive tropical storms in the history of our region and probably in the history of our country. And Harvey was a big deal. The president came to the neighborhood I grew up in to make publicity shots because that neighborhood is notorious for flooding. We didn't flood, but we did have some damage from the rain going in the back, from the rain flowing around our house, and we had to renovate some. But yeah, during that 3 or 4 days when Tropical Storm Harvey sat over our region and dumped rain and just flooded our streets, yeah, I was really stressed, and I came to understand that, man, I've got anxiety. And as a Christian, as a believer, anxiety is something I shouldn't have. But I did, and so what do I do to relieve that anxiety and that stress? I prayed. I went to the Lord in prayer. I prayed a lot. I prayed frequently. I prayed all the time, and that gave me peace. That gave me the peace that passes all understanding for those who place their hearts on Christ Jesus. So yeah, I'm a Christian. I'm not ashamed of it. If you're not a Christian, man, you should consider it. Anyway, so yeah, let's go on to the next question. Okay, the next question, question number 8. Who is the longest friend you have? I know a lot of people that I'm still in contact with from even grade school. But the best friend that I have and the longest friend that I have is my wife. She is my best friend. She is the most awesome person on earth. My wife is all that. I met my wife in high school. We met in December of 1985. Actually, we knew of each other long before that, but December of 1985 is when we went on our first date. And in 1991 we got married. So we've been married almost 30 years. I've known her for much longer than that, and she's my best friend. I confide in her. I would not tell anyone, I would not consider anyone else closer than she is. She's my better half, and she's quite a firecracker too. So yeah, I love my wife. My wife is awesome, and I don't know how I would have got along in life without my wife. So yeah, she's my best friend. All right, we're getting in some not so important stuff. What is my favorite movie? Man, I got so many favorite movies, and they're not like Star Wars or Narnia, Lord of the Rings. I don't go for a lot of that stuff. I'll watch them, but you know, they don't impact me. My favorite movie, there's too many to pick, but I'm going to give you a bunch of them here. No Time for Sergeants with Andy Griffith, awesome comedy. Life with Father, the very first film that what's her name, Elizabeth Taylor, was ever in as a dumb teenager. Life with Father, based on the books by Clarence Day. Awesome comedy, absolutely rip-roaring funny. Life with Father. Nacho Libre, I mean, Jack Black doing funny comedy is always funny. Army of Crime, a French movie about the resistance in France. That's another good one I enjoy. The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming. Great comedy in the Cold War. If you don't understand the Cold War, go watch that movie. You'll get a good laugh. This was an American movie that made during the Cold War that was also shown in the Soviet Union to great applause. It was a wonderful movie. So yeah, go watch The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming. Sophie Scholl. Oh man, if you don't know about Sophie Scholl and standing up against tyranny, go watch this movie. The Life of, I think it's just called Sophie Scholl. But Sophie Scholl was in Nazi Germany a teenager, and she was she stood against tyranny. And in their teenage zeal, I guess you could say, they would go out and they would put leaflets out against the Nazi party, and they got caught. And her testimony and her trial before the judge was documented by the Germans very well. Germans documented everything. Every word she said was documented. And so after the fall of the Iron Curtain, the East German archives had all this stuff in there, and the movie makers used her exact words. Sophie Scholl's story is incredible. What the movie doesn't show is that Sophie Scholl was inspired by her Christianity and by her Lutheran upbringing and by a particular sermon from a Catholic of all things. I mean, we're talking, she's a Christian and she's listening to a Catholic preach. He was the Lion of Berlin, or the Lion, I don't remember, but she was inspired by this sermon, this fire-breathing, Holy Spirit-filled sermon, to go into resistance, and she did. Sophie Scholl, I'm not going to ruin the movie for you if you've never heard of Sophie Scholl. Sophie Scholl is the real deal. Go watch that movie. It's probably my favorite movie, actually. Other movies, you go check out my my war movie and my book review blog. Yeah, I actually still have a blog. I know blogs are like 15 years out of extinct, but still, you can go check out some of my favorite books and movies there. That brings us to question number 10. What is my favorite book? I can't pick a favorite book. Come on, I'm a reader. I read tons of books a year. This is my classics, my spy novels, more spy novels, more spy novels, historical fiction, gardening, some more spy novels, gardening and homesteading. This is my history section. History. This is all our classic fiction, modern fiction, and some of my wife's books over here. My wife's books. We all like antiquarian books. And yeah, we love books. My living room, I have theology books, more theology books. Spurgeon, Pilgrim's Progress, my favorite book of all time, including antiquarians. Theology books, more theology, some theological fiction. My wife's favorite book, Stepping Heavenward by Elizabeth Prentice, including antiquarian versions, more theology and some theological fiction and poetry. And upstairs, my library, theology, some history, some end of the world type books and boyhood books, theology. Yeah, we love our books here. I'm going to focus on fiction then. My favorite book is the Bible, but everybody who's a Christian has to say that, right? Right. But I'm going to give you my fiction books. Count of Monte Cristo. Go read Dumas's Count of Monte Cristo. It's considered by many the greatest novel of all time. Yeah, it's like 19 inches thick and 4,000 pages long. But just keep a notebook and track those characters. Great book. Man, a great revenge story. Coffin for Demetrius by, I'm going to forget his name, Eric Ambler. It's one of the greatest spy novels by the master, one of the guys who established the spy novel genre. Our Man in Havana by Graham Greene, another master of the genre. Our Man in Havana is hilarious. It's a great story. And the movie's pretty good, too. It's got, who's the guy who played Ben Kenobi in Star Wars? The original Star Wars, the first Star Wars. What do they call it now? I don't remember what they call it, the ordering. But that guy, that English actor, played in Our Man in Havana in the movie and was very good at it. Cannery Row by John Steinbeck. Man, I love that story. That's hilarious as well. 1984 by George Orwell. You need to read that book, especially today, to get some idea of what really tyranny is all about. And about, yeah, go read 1984. There's actually a whole book within that book. Ministry of Fear by Graham Greene. That was a good one. I love that book because I really connected to the character. The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It was a bestseller about 20 years ago. And the movie of that book is also very good. But go read the book. Man, that's a good book. I just can't name all the books I love. I love so many books, and you know, it's usually the most recent good book you read is the one you like the most. So my book choices always change. All right, so 11, what to do on a stormy day. What's my favorite thing to do on a stormy day? Look at the radar, watch the storms come in. I don't stormy days, I mean, they don't bother me so much. It's free irrigation for all these plants. What's my favorite thing to do when the weather is perfect? Come outside, garden, ride a bike, go fishing, go to the beach. You know, when the weather is perfect, I just like to be outdoors. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. When the weather is perfect, what is perfect? I mean, some people like the heat. Some people like to go to the beach when it's hot. I like to be in my garden on a spring day. That's what I like. Yeah, let's get to the next questions. Okay, here's one. Do you prefer the big city or a small town? You know, I've always lived in between those two. I've lived in, well, not always. I live in the suburbs. I live on the suburbs of one of the largest cities in our nation, city of Houston. And I've always worked in Houston. I've been part of the big city. I've been part of kind of big city industry. And yeah, but I also had family who lived in small towns. Rosenberg, Texas, my grandmother lived there. And I would go out and live in small town Texas during the summer. I think if I was forced to make a choice, it would be small town. There's just too much in the city that's too, yeah, your supply chains and your dependencies are a little bit more risky in the big city than they are in the country where you can make do and be more independent. I like independence. I like being able to be sufficient as much as I can. I don't like being told what to do. And the cities are just not built for that. But I do love cities. I've been to every large city in this nation. New York, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, Portland, you know, Dallas. I've been to them all, and they're all the same. They're nice to visit, but I don't think I'd really like to live there. So yeah, I prefer a small town, I'd have to say. Where I live now actually is a suburb of the city of Houston, but it still has a little bit of small town vibe, but it's not rural. It is like an urban small town, and that's how all these cities that ring the city of Houston are like. Each one of them has its own kind of flavor, and yeah, so I prefer the small town. What keeps me here is I'm a pastor and I have a congregation. It's very diverse, and we come from all different areas of the city of Houston, and I love them very much. And I've determined that this is where I live. This is what I'm going to do. Come what may, I have to live here because I'm more devoted to my congregation, to my family, and to our lifestyle that we have established here. You know, that's we just can't uproot and go out into buy a 10-acre plot in the middle of Idaho somewhere, because I would be abandoning the things that are dear to us. So yeah, I like the small town, but here we are in the suburbs. What is the first thing you want to do when this virus is over? I want to go eat Mexican food and have some fajitas at our favorite Mexican food joint without having to wear a mask. That's what I want to do. This viral thing hadn't affected us too much. I work at home. My office is here at my house. My family home educates, so the school thing hadn't been an issue. And so far, we haven't really been affected. I went and bought a battery for my daughter's car today during a lockdown with a mask order in place in the county that I live in. But I live on the edge of the county, so I just went to the other county. Nobody's wearing masks over there. So, yeah, nothing's really changed here in my household. And I know a lot of other people are suffering. People in my congregation, most of them, that's my friend group. People in my congregation, most of them have retained their jobs, but I know people in my neighborhood have been laid off, don't have hope for a job. And I know it's affecting people. I know it's hard, and I know it's difficult. But, yeah, I've been fortunate and blessed enough that we haven't been too affected. So I can say the biggest thing I want to do is to be able to go get fajitas down at a Gringo's Mexican food restaurant. Yeah, so that's the questions. Wow, I'm at the end. That's everything you need to know about me according to the paper. So I got to tag some people. Let me think who I want to tag. Okay, folks, so the deal with this is you're supposed to do your questions about you and then tag some other YouTubers that you'd like to know more about. And I believe I'm not a big YouTuber. Big YouTubers to me have 100,000 plus subscribers, 400,000, 500,000, or a million subscribers. Those are people who are making bank on YouTube. I am at 40-something thousand subscribers, and I'm tickled pink. I'm so humbled, man. I can't believe that I've added so many this spring. My goal for this year is 50,000. I think I'm going to make that in a month or two. So I consider myself a medium to small, but making money YouTube channel. I also believe in that those who are successful should look to those who are up and coming and trying hard and working hard and laboring hard. So long as they have good info, if they are beneficial channels and you gain from those channels, that you should help them and promote them as well. It's just being nice to your neighbor. It's loving your neighbor. And so some of the channels I would like to tag in this have already been tagged. In fact, one of them tagged me, Jason Avers. You need to go check out Jason Avers' channel. Really great channel. And as he increases and learns and does more YouTube stuff, I think his channel is going to be something you'll stick with. Arkansas Woodcutter. He says I got him into YouTube because of the single seed challenge. Yeah, I don't know, man, brother. You got a good channel. You got a lot of knowledge, and as you learn to really put that information together, you're going to do great. But Arkansas Woodcutter's already done the challenge or the tag. So I'm going to tag some that I don't believe have been tagged by anyone else. I'm going to tag Dayna Robertson. She's over in Hawaii. I got some seeds from her. She is part of the group that really follows the community that David the Good built on his gardening channel, specifically his live streams. And a lot of us are kind of, I don't want to say disciples of, but we follow a lot of the methods that David teaches. And Dayna Robertson, you're tagged. I'd like to know more about you. Larry, man, down in deep South Texas. He's down in the valley, I think. Way down there in the deep south of Texas, zone like 57 or something. Larry, man, I love your gardening. I love your cheese making. I love your videos. I want to know more about you, so I'm tagging you too. Krystal's Texas Garden. Krystal lives out on the east side of town, kind of out near the sticks east of Houston, and she's got a lot of property out there, and she's doing some interesting things. I don't always agree with the way she does it, but I respect the way she does it. And that's the way it is with all of us gardeners. So, Krystal, you're tagged. I want to know more about you. Rachel Andorfer. Rachel is, I think, a Clemson grad out there somewhere on the east side of the country. Maybe at Carolina. I don't really know where you live. But Rachel Andorfer is a young gardener, and she's an honest gardener. She's showing you her success, her mistake. She's showing you what she's doing. And when she plants her plants and stuff, I think, ooh, maybe you should space them out more, but whatever. But she's trying, experimenting, learning, and having some success. And I think you should go check out Rachel. So Rachel, I want to know more about you too. Jan at Small Garden Quest. Man, Jan and I did a little brief collaboration this past spring on trellising, and Jan is an interesting guy. He does mostly small gardens and square foot gardens. That's not the method I use, but that's the one I started out with. So go check out Jan. You can glean from all of these gardeners. That's the thing. From gardening channels, you can glean information. You don't have to like write down the method and follow it like a recipe. Okay, gardening's not like that. There are, you know, dozens of different gardening methods that you can do. Go follow Bruce at Red Gardens. He's over in Ireland, and he'll show you, because he's doing 8 different methods on his property and showing you the difference between them with lots of data. So, you know, like intensive gardens, extensive gardens, polytunnel gardens, no dig gardens, traditional till gardens. He's doing them all, and so you can go see that. You don't have to be a slave to one particular type. And so that's why I'm tagging all these different people. Dayna is a homesteader in Hawaii. Larry's down in deep South Texas. His weather is like outstanding. Krystal's off in my area and doing things on a much larger scale than I am. Rachel's off on the East Coast doing things on a tiny scale, you know, behind her fence. And Jan, he's doing square foot gardening, like really rigid square foot methods of intensive gardening. We can learn from each other. We can all learn. And so those are who I'm tagging. I hope you'll play along. Hey, thanks for joining me on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. This might have been a narcissistic post, a narcissistic video. I hope you don't see it that way. I hope you see it as getting to know each other more, and I hope you enjoyed it. Happy gardening to you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. What'd you find there, Phoebe? You find a rat? Is there a rat? Huh? Where's a critter? You're all wet. Why are you all wet? Huh?